The theater felt strange the moment Emily walked in. It was too quiet. No lines at the snack counter. No voices echoing off the walls. Just soft lights and the smell of popcorn hanging in the air like a memory. She stopped near the entrance and looked around. Every seat was empty. Every seat except two. They were in the back row. Her chest tightened as she walked forward. Each step felt louder than it should have. She spotted Noah standing near the row, holding a drink in each hand. He looked older than she remembered, not by much, but enough to notice. His hair was shorter. His eyes carried a weight that hadn't been there before. "You're here," he said, smiling in a careful way. "Yeah," she replied. "I didn't miss it." She almost laughed at how small her voice sounded. They sat down, leaving rows of empty seats between themselves and the screen. The space around them felt unreal, like they had stepped into a moment meant only for them. Emily set her bag at her feet and wrapped her hands around the cup, even though it was still cold. The lights dimmed. The silence deepened. Emily felt it in her chest, that feeling she had tried to bury years ago. She hadn't planned for this. She thought it would be easy. A movie. A friendly night. Nothing more. But sitting beside Noah again made everything rush back. They had met in college, during a rainy fall semester. He had shared his notes with her during a class she almost dropped. They became friends fast. Too fast. Late-night talks turned into long walks. Long walks turned into moments that lingered too long. Life had pulled them apart before anything could happen. Jobs. Cities. Timing. And now here they were, together again, with nothing but silence and a glowing screen in front of them. Emily stared at the previews but didn't see them. Her mind kept drifting. She wondered why Noah had called her. Why now? Why a movie theater instead of coffee or lunch? She glanced at him. He sat still, eyes forward, one arm resting on the armrest between them. Not touching her. Not pulling away either. Just close enough to make her aware of every inch of space. The movie started. Emily tried to focus, but the quiet made everything louder. The soft sounds of the film. The steady breathing beside her. The slow beat of her own heart. She remembered the night they almost crossed a line. They had stood outside her apartment, the air cold, their words slowing down as if neither wanted the moment to end. She could still see the way he looked at her then, like he was holding something back. "I don't want to ruin what we have," he had said. She never forgot that sentence. Now, years later, the question returned. What if there was nothing left to ruin? Emily shifted in her seat. Noah moved slightly too, as if he felt it. Their eyes met for a brief second. Something passed between them. Recognition. Unspoken truth. The theater stayed empty. No one else arrived. It felt like time had paused just for them. Emily leaned back and let the darkness hide her face. She felt exposed and safe at the same time. The feeling scared her. This wasn't just a movie night. It was a moment waiting for a choice. The screen glowed in front of them, telling a story that didn't matter. The real story was happening in the quiet space between two people who had never truly let go. The movie kept playing, but the silence between them grew heavier with every minute. Emily felt it pressing in from all sides, wrapping around her thoughts. The empty theater no longer felt strange. It felt intentional, like the world had stepped aside and left them alone on purpose. She adjusted in her seat, crossing her legs, then uncrossing them. Nothing felt comfortable. Her attention kept drifting away from the screen and back to Noah. He hadn't moved much. His eyes stayed fixed forward, but his focus wasn't really there. She could tell. Noah had always been like that. Present in body, distant in mind when something mattered too much. Emily studied his profile in the soft glow from the screen. The line of his jaw. The slight crease between his brows. He looked calm, but she knew better. She had learned his silences long ago. The movie shifted to a quieter scene. The sound lowered. Music softened. The quiet made room for memories. Emily remembered late nights when they talked about everything except what they felt. She remembered how safe it felt to sit beside him, how dangerous it felt at the same time. With Noah, everything meaningful stayed just below the surface. Her phone buzzed again in her pocket. She ignored it without thinking. Whatever waited outside this room could wait longer. Noah finally moved. He shifted his arm slightly on the armrest between them. Not toward her. Not away. Just enough to remind her it was there. Her breath caught for a second. She wondered if he noticed. The screen reflected faintly in his eyes. Emily glanced away quickly, afraid he would catch her staring. Her heart beat faster than it should have. This was ridiculous, she told herself. They were adults. Old friends. There was nothing happening. But her body didn't listen. The space between their hands felt charged. She didn't dare move closer, but she didn't move away either. That space had meaning now. It held all the words they never said. Noah cleared his throat softly. Emily flinched, then laughed quietly at herself. She turned her head slightly toward him. "Is the sound low?" she whispered, though she knew it wasn't. He shook his head. "No. It's fine." His voice was calm, but there was something under it. Tension. Care. They went quiet again. The movie jumped to another scene, louder this time, but the moment between them didn't break. It stretched, thin and fragile. Emily's thoughts moved fast. Why did he invite me? Why now? What does he want? She thought about the last time they spoke before tonight. A short phone call. Polite. Safe. Nothing personal. She had hung up feeling like a door had closed. And yet, here he was. She remembered the way he used to look at her when she wasn't watching. The way he stayed a step behind when they walked, as if protecting her from something invisible. The way he listened, really listened, when she spoke. She had missed that more than she admitted. Noah shifted again. This time, his elbow brushed the armrest more firmly. His hand rested open, relaxed, palm down. Close enough that Emily could see the faint scar on his knuckle. She knew that scar. He got it moving boxes when he helped her change apartments years ago. Her chest tightened. The movie reached a moment meant to be emotional. A pause in the story. Soft music filled the theater. Emily felt something inside her break open. She realized then that the silence between them wasn't empty. It was full of things unsaid. Noah exhaled slowly. His shoulders dropped a little, like he had been holding tension without noticing. He leaned back in his seat, but his arm stayed where it was. Emily felt pulled toward him, not by desire alone, but by familiarity. By trust. By the weight of history. She wondered if he felt the same pull. She turned her head slightly, just enough to see his expression. His eyes were still on the screen, but they looked distant, thoughtful. He seemed caught in his own memories. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The quiet did the talking for them. Minutes passed, though it felt like seconds. The theater remained empty, sealed off from the rest of the world. Emily felt like they were suspended in time, balanced on the edge of something important. Her heart whispered a truth she had avoided for years. She wasn't over him. And maybe, judging by the way his hand remained so close, he wasn't over her either. The silence between them deepened, not awkward, not cold, but waiting. Waiting for someone to move. Waiting for someone to be brave enough to break it. The movie moved into a quiet scene, soft music filling the theater, and Emily felt the tension stretch like a taut string ready to snap. The emptiness of the rows around them made the moment feel private, suspended in time. She was painfully aware of Noah beside her, the space between them, the warmth of his presence, the gentle rhythm of his breathing. She realized she couldn't stay frozen anymore. Every memory, every near touch from years ago, pressed against her chest. She had rehearsed this moment in her mind 1,000 times, and now the dark theater made it feel possible. Emily shifted slightly, careful not to make a sound, and let her hand move closer to his on the armrest. Not touching, just close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him. Her heart raced as if it knew the risk she was taking, and every nerve in her body buzzed with anticipation. She tried to keep her breathing even, but the awareness of him was overpowering. Noah noticed immediately. He stiffened for a brief second, and Emily's stomach twisted. Had she gone too far? Was this the wrong moment? But then he relaxed slightly, not moving his hand away, just letting it linger near hers. It was a small gesture, but it carried a weight that no words could match. The scene on the screen mirrored what they both felt: soft, vulnerable, unspoken longing. Emily's fingers twitched slightly, tempted to bridge the gap, but she paused. Just close enough to show she cared, just enough to let him know she hadn't forgotten what had passed between them all those years ago. Noah exhaled slowly, almost unconsciously, and shifted a fraction closer. Their hands brushed lightly. It was fleeting, barely noticeable, yet enough to make Emily's heart leap. That small touch spoke volumes. The years of missed chances, unspoken feelings, and quiet longing, all of it hung in that single, delicate moment. Her mind raced. Did he feel it too? Had he missed her just as much as she had missed him? The theater seemed to shrink around them, focusing all her attention on this shared, fragile connection. She wanted to speak, to fill the space with words that had been trapped in her chest for years, but she didn't. Sometimes silence was more honest than any sentence could be. The movie continued, but neither of them followed it. The story on the screen didn't matter. The tension in the theater was more gripping than any plot twist or dramatic scene. Emily watched the subtle shift in Noah's expression, how his lips parted slightly, how his eyes softened, how he seemed to surrender to the quiet intimacy of the moment. She remembered the countless nights they had spent together, talking in the dark, sharing secrets, and dreaming aloud. How close they had been, yet how careful they were not to cross the invisible line that separated friendship from something more. That line had always haunted her, lingering in her mind like a shadow she couldn't escape. Now, in the dim light of the theater, she felt it dissolve. The years, the distance, the silence, they all seemed to vanish in the space of a single, fleeting touch. Emily realized that she had finally done something she had wanted to do for years. She had let him know she cared without words. Noah's fingers brushed hers again, a gentle, tentative connection. It wasn't bold or dramatic. It wasn't meant to be. It was quiet, intimate, and entirely theirs. Emily's chest swelled with an emotion she couldn't name: relief, longing, love, all tangled together. She looked at him out of the corner of her eye, afraid to meet his gaze directly. But she didn't need to. His body language, his subtle movements, spoke louder than words ever could. The tension in his shoulders, the way he leaned just slightly closer, told her that he had been waiting for this moment too. The scene on the screen faded into silence, and Emily realized she was holding her breath. The theater remained empty. Time seemed suspended. She had crossed a line, and yet, in that crossing, everything felt right. Noah finally exhaled and turned slightly toward her. Their eyes met briefly. Emily felt a wave of emotion she could hardly contain: years of longing, missed chances, and quiet heartache distilled into one fleeting glance. Neither of them spoke. Words would have ruined it. Silence was their confession, louder than anything spoken aloud. Emily's mind raced with possibilities. What would happen now? Did this change everything? Or was it just a single moment in a lifetime of missed chances? She didn't care about the answer yet. All that mattered was the here and now, the warmth of his hand, the nearness of his presence, the undeniable connection they had shared for years but never fully acknowledged. The soft glow of the screen painted his face in gentle light. She noticed the small details: the curve of his smile, the faint scar on his knuckle, the way his eyes flickered with emotion. Every small detail felt monumental, as if the universe had conspired to place them here, together, at this precise moment. The movie continued, but Emily didn't watch it. She felt the story unfolding between them more keenly than any plot on the screen. Every small movement, every hesitant brush of fingers, spoke of longing and courage and something neither of them had dared to name. Noah shifted again, this time resting his hand closer, almost touching hers. Emily's heart raced faster than ever. She wanted to move her hand, to close the gap completely, but fear held her back. Not fear of rejection, but fear of the intensity of the moment. Sometimes, letting things happen slowly made them more real, more precious. The theater remained silent, their breaths the only sound alongside the soft music of the film. Emily realized that this was more than just a shared touch. It was the culmination of years of history, of emotions stored quietly in their hearts, of feelings neither had dared to express until now. Time seemed to stretch, each second heavy with unspoken words. Emily felt the thrill of finally allowing herself to feel, to act, to reach across the invisible barrier that had always separated them. This was no longer a simple night at the movies. It was a declaration without words, a quiet surrender to the connection they had always shared. As the scene on the screen faded into darkness, Emily's hand lingered near Noah's. He didn't pull away. Instead, he let the proximity exist, a silent acknowledgement of what had passed between them. It was intimate, it was gentle, and it was entirely theirs. Emily closed her eyes for a moment, taking it all in, the warmth of his hand near hers, the empty theater around them, the feeling of finally letting go. The tension that had lingered for years began to soften, replaced by a fragile, hopeful energy. When she opened her eyes, she saw Noah watching her, a faint, knowing smile on his lips. Their fingers brushed once more, tentative but deliberate, a quiet promise that they both understood. Emily felt her heart swell with emotion, longing, relief, and a happiness she hadn't realized she'd been craving for so long. The movie continued to play, but they didn't care. Time existed only for them, in that small, dark theater, in the space between two hands that had waited years to meet. And in that moment, Emily knew something fundamental. She had acted on her heart, she had reached across the distance, and for the first time in a long time, she felt completely alive. Noah's eyes met hers again, and this time, the unspoken words between them felt stronger than ever. Emily smiled faintly, a mixture of hope and fear and joy. They didn't need to say anything. Nothing needed to be rushed. For the first time, the silence wasn't heavy. It was full of possibility. And in that quiet, suspended world, Emily realized she had finally done it. She had let herself act on what she had been holding inside for years. And Noah had met her there, without hesitation, without judgment, with the same quiet intensity that had always drawn her to him. The theater, empty and still, became a witness to the moment, a moment that belonged entirely to them, delicate and fragile, but utterly real. For Emily, it was a beginning, a step forward into something she had only dared to imagine before. The lights of the screen flickered, the music softened, but nothing could diminish the truth of that touch, that small connection that carried the weight of years and whispered promises of what might come next. In the back row of that empty theater, Emily and Noah had crossed the line. Not with words, not with grand gestures, but with the simplest, most powerful act of all, allowing themselves to feel, to reach, and to finally acknowledge the bond that had never truly faded. The credits started to roll, and Emily realized she hadn't noticed the movie ending. She hadn't cared about the story on the screen at all. Her focus had been entirely on Noah, on the tiny shifts, the almost touch, the quiet understanding that had passed between them. The theater remained empty, the hum of the projector the only sound beyond their breathing. She let her hand linger a little longer near his, as if committing the moment to memory. Noah didn't move away. Instead, he shifted slightly, turning his shoulder toward her, a subtle gesture that spoke of comfort, trust, and recognition. Emily felt her chest tighten in a mix of relief and longing. When the lights slowly came back on, reality crept in. The stark brightness of the theater made everything feel different. The magic of the dark, the privacy of the moment, they were gone, replaced by rows of empty seats, fluorescent lights, and the gentle echo of the credits rolling. Emily wanted to stay frozen in that small bubble, but the world outside was waiting. Noah finally spoke. His voice was quiet, soft, but steady. "I'm glad it was just us tonight." Emily's lips curved into a small smile. She nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She didn't need to explain herself. He understood. They didn't need to define the moment with words. Some things were better left unspoken. Some moments were meant to exist just as they were, intimate, fleeting, and entirely theirs. They stood, moving slowly, not rushing. The movie theater felt vast and empty around them, echoing with their quiet footsteps. Emily noticed the small details she had never really seen before, the way Noah's hand rested against the back of his seat, the slight curve of his smile, the familiar rhythm of his walk beside her. They exited into the cool night air. The streets were quiet. A few cars passed by, but nothing disturbed the moment. Emily realized she had expected this night to feel awkward, maybe even forced. But it didn't. It felt natural, like coming home after a long journey. They walked side by side, not holding hands, but close enough that Emily could feel the warmth radiating from him. Every step carried the weight of their shared history, the years of missed chances, of silent longing, of moments they had almost allowed to happen but hadn't. Emily thought about what had just occurred. The gentle brush of fingers, the quiet understanding, the unspoken confession. It wasn't dramatic, and it didn't need to be. It wasn't about fireworks or grand gestures. It was about recognition. About admitting something to herself and to him without words. Noah glanced at her, his eyes catching hers in the faint street light. There was a softness there, a kind of unspoken agreement. They had both felt it. They had both waited. And now, finally, they had acted, even if only in the smallest of ways. Emily's thoughts drifted to the future. What would this mean? Did it change everything? Did it change nothing? She didn't know, and for once, she didn't need to. Right now, walking beside him, feeling that quiet connection, was enough. They reached the corner where their paths would diverge. Noah stopped, turning slightly to face her. His expression was calm, measured, but there was a flicker of something deeper in his eyes, hope, perhaps, or relief, maybe even a quiet joy that mirrored her own. "See you soon?" he asked. Not a question. Not a promise. Just a gentle acknowledgement of what had passed between them. Emily nodded, her smile faint but full of emotion. "Yeah," she said. "Soon." She watched him walk away, feeling a tug at her heart but also a strange sense of peace. They had shared something rare, something quiet and profound, and it was theirs alone. The guilty pleasure wasn't the touch, or the closeness, or even the decision to reach out. It was the courage to allow themselves to feel, to act, and to acknowledge the bond they had held on to for so long. As she walked home, the night air brushing against her face, Emily felt a mix of longing and contentment. The city lights blurred around her, but she carried the memory of the theater with her, the empty seats, the darkness, the soft hum of the projector, and the simple, perfect connection between two people who had never stopped caring for each other. She thought about how strange it was that something so small could feel so monumental. One brush of fingers, one shared breath, one silent understanding, it had been enough. Enough to remind her that the heart remembers even when the mind tries to forget. By the time she reached her door, she realized she wasn't sad. Not really. She was full of something more complicated, a mixture of hope and nostalgia, of longing and quiet happiness. It was the kind of feeling that didn't need a resolution to matter. It was enough to know that they had shared it. That they had allowed themselves to be vulnerable, even for just a moment. Emily stepped inside, closing the door behind her, and leaned against it. She could still feel Noah's presence beside her, the warmth of his hand just near hers, the echo of his quiet acknowledgement. She smiled to herself, knowing that life would move forward, and yet this night, this small, perfect night, would stay with her forever. The guilty pleasure wasn't reckless. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't even meant to be repeated. It was the courage to act on something she had waited years to feel, and to do it with someone who had felt the same way all along. Emily sank into her chair by the window, looking out at the quiet street. She could still feel it, the soft pull between them, the unspoken connection, the delicate bond that had survived years and distance and silence. And she knew, without a doubt, that this night had changed everything, even if they didn't say a word about it. For the first time in years, Emily felt completely, utterly alive.